Hey everyone, seriously, what is Nicki Minaj even up to right now? So here's the situation. Nicki recently appeared at an event in New York, hosted by the UN and led by Ambassador Mike Waltz. The event had the title Combating Religious Violence and the Killing of Christians in Nigeria, which honestly feels like a really odd mix of topics to come together in one place. Naturally, you might be sitting there thinking, how did we even get to this point? And truthfully, the path that led here is a little messy, kind of confusing, and doesn't fully make sense if you try to map it out. But I'll do my best to lay down the backstory behind all this strange narrative and media buzz we're seeing. And yes, it's fair to call it propaganda. As we've discussed on this channel before, Nicki's music career and social media presence haven't exactly been at their peak lately. Things have kind of faltered. A lot of this stems from the infamous beef she started with Megan Thee Stallion, which didn't really work out in her favor. On top of that, her latest album, Pink Friday 2, hasn't really hit the mark creatively compared to the original Pink Friday. Even though the album had decent first-week numbers, it hasn't shown the kind of staying power that many of Nicki's previous projects enjoyed. And when you layer in her increasingly unpredictable activity online, especially on platforms like Twitter, where she's been known to spiral into heated or confusing posts about all sorts of random topics, it paints a picture of someone whose public image has gotten a little unstable. But if you pay close attention to her recent activity online, there's something interesting going on. Amid all the chaotic tweets and random posts, Nicki Minaj has started sharing content that seems to lean slightly in a right-wing direction. For example, she posted a video of Trump's granddaughter doing the Bees in the Trap TikTok remix trend. On the surface, some might say, oh, she's just sharing it because it's a popular trend and her song got remixed. And yes, thousands of people are making similar videos all the time. But here's the thing. Why this specific video? Why choose this particular clip over countless others that are visually more creative or just generally more impressive? It's clear that the choice of this video isn't random. The connection of this girl to the Trump family carries meaning, whether people want to acknowledge it or not. Especially with the Trump administration currently struggling in the polls, they seem desperate for any small win or even just a distraction from controversies like the Epstein emails, which we'll circle back to in a moment. And this context helps explain why Nicki ended up being invited to speak at this UN event. The topic itself, something that the Trump administration has been heavily emphasizing, is oddly aligned with the messaging they've been pushing. But before diving into all the political angles, let's take a moment to actually hear what Nicki said at the event.
Hello, everyone. I must say I am very nervous, so please, well, thank you, Ambassador Waltz, for this invitation. It is an honor to stand on this stage with you and the other distinguished speakers here today to shine a spotlight on the deadly threat faced by thousands of Christians in Nigeria. I would like to thank President Trump for prioritizing this issue and for his leadership on the global stage in calling for urgent action to defend Christians in Nigeria, to combat extremism, and to bring a stop to violence against those who simply want to exercise their natural right to freedom of religion or belief. I stand here as a proud New Yorker with a deep sense of gratitude that we live in a country where we can freely and safely worship God regardless of one's creed, background, or politics. No group should ever be persecuted for practicing their religion, like I recently stated on social media. And we don't have to share the same beliefs in order for us to respect each other. We're way beyond thinking or expecting or assuming for, the person sitting next to you to have the exact same beliefs. We're beyond that. That's ridiculous. But that shouldn't make one person feel less safe than anyone in any room. Music has taken me around the globe. I have seen how people, no matter their language, culture, or religion, come alive when they hear a song that touches their soul. Religious freedom means we all can sing our faith regardless of who we are, where we live, and what we believe. But today, faith is under attack in way too many places. In Nigeria, Christians are being targeted, driven from their homes, and killed. Churches have been burned. Families have been torn apart, and entire communities live in fear constantly, simply because of how they pray. Sadly, this problem is not only a growing problem in Nigeria, but also in so many other countries across the world, and it demands urgent action. And I want to be clear. Protecting Christians in Nigeria is not about taking sides or dividing people. It is about uniting humanity. Nigeria is a beautiful nation with deep faith traditions and lots of beautiful barbs that I can't wait to see. When one's church, mosque, or place of worship is destroyed, everyone's heart should break just a little bit. And the foundation of the United Nations, with its core mandate to ensure peace and security, should shake. I am joined here today by peace builders, by faith leaders, by those who saw violence, saw rising intolerance, saw the threats clearly before us, and chose not to look the other way. I am inspired by their work to build interfaith ties, to see the humanity across the lines which might divide us, and to fight for security and liberty for all those who pray. I look forward to our discussion today, and I hope it will encourage deepened solidarity for us to urgently work together to ensure every person can enjoy the right to believe, to worship, and to live in peace. Barbs, I know you're somewhere listening. I love you so very much. You have been the ultimate light in my life and career for so long. I appreciate you, and I want to make it very clear once again that this isn't about taking sides. This is about standing up in the face of injustice. It's about what I've always stood for my entire career, and I will continue to stand for that. For the rest of my life, I will care if anyone, anywhere, is being persecuted for their beliefs. Thank you.
Now, if you actually watch that clip or read through her entire speech, you'll notice something pretty important. There's nothing truly wild, extreme, or hateful in what Nicki Minaj is saying here. She's not going off the rails or attacking anyone. Instead, she's speaking about serious issues like discrimination and persecution based on cultural or religious differences. Topics that, honestly, we should all care about. There's nothing inherently wrong with her words themselves. The bigger question comes from what her speech seems to support or give weight to. In certain parts of her talk, she goes out of her way to thank the Trump administration and even appears to endorse the actions and focus they've placed on this issue. And that's where it gets tricky, because we have to ask ourselves, what exactly is she lending her support to beyond what's being spoken on stage? Here's the context. Trump and his team, at a point when their approval ratings are really low, have been trying to convince the American public that there's an extreme, nationwide wave of violent persecution of Christians happening in Nigeria. According to their narrative, it's so severe, so terrifying, that they may need to step in, potentially even militarily. Now, Nicki doesn't explicitly call for military intervention or any kind of direct action in her speech, and that's almost certainly intentional. If she had openly endorsed war or intervention, her message would have faced way more backlash and probably wouldn't have landed as well as it did. And let's be clear, it's not like her speech was universally praised. A lot of her fans, even some of the most loyal ones, are seeing right through this facade, and it's definitely creating controversy around her. Apparently, in just a matter of hours, Nicki Minaj has lost hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter. She's taking heavy criticism from the very groups of people who once saw her content as a kind of safe space. Think about it. Women who are personally troubled by all of Trump's sexual abuse allegations and his connections to sex trafficking, immigrants who feel threatened by Trump's ICE policies, and members of the LGBTQ+ community who, over the past decade, have watched right-wing politicians become increasingly hostile toward their rights, whether it's around trans issues or gay marriage. For these groups, nothing happening in Nigeria, even if real, can make them ignore what the Trump administration is doing right here at home. That's why you're seeing so much backlash within Nicki's fan base right now. People feel betrayed, confused, and frustrated all at once. Now, looking at the situation in Nigeria itself, I'm not here to deny that there are extremist groups committing acts of violence and persecuting Christians or other communities. That's a reality, but the bigger question is whether the narrative around this violence is being skewed, and whether the Trump administration's interest is truly about helping people, or if there's another agenda at play. While the attacks in Nigeria are serious, they don't appear to be government-endorsed. Most of the violence is carried out by isolated rogue actors, and sending military intervention to another country to target these rogue groups, that's a very unusual and risky approach in international policy. America has done interventions like this before, but history shows it almost always backfires. In this context, focusing so intensely on this issue seems, well, odd, and it definitely raises some questions about motivation. And it's not just about Nigeria. While all this is happening, the United States has also been funding what many consider an ongoing genocide in Palestine, a conflict that continues even after the recent ceasefire. And if we keep looking at Nigeria itself, the country currently has laws that criminalize any open expression of homosexuality, which is a form of real government-backed persecution. Yet, the Trump administration isn't showing any interest in intervening there. I'm not bringing these examples up to say, violence happens everywhere, so don't care about this one. That's not the point. The real question is, if there are so many pressing social crises around the world, why is Trump focusing almost exclusively on this one situation in Nigeria? And why is the proposed solution military intervention, something that history, even very recent history, tells us rarely works? The idea that America can swoop in and save the day is largely a comforting fantasy. In reality, those overseas operations often end up lining the pockets of military contractors, oil companies, and mining corporations, creating a bloody, complicated capitalist web. And somehow, Nicki Minaj has become entangled in this narrative, lending her platform and influence to a story that's essentially propaganda. What she gains from it, or why she's participating in it, remains unclear. And we really have to ask ourselves, why Nicki Minaj? Why is she the one chosen to speak on this? It honestly feels like Trump is using her as a tool to talk about this topic, knowing that his supporters will see her and automatically assume she's some kind of authority just because she's famous and not white. That's the power of celebrity influence in action, whether we like it or not. And just to circle back to something I mentioned earlier, this is all happening right as Trump has been exposed for his deep connections to Jeffrey Epstein, the most infamous sex trafficker and pedophile in history. After news like that, you'd think anyone with even a shred of caution would want nothing to do with him. But Nicki, as we know, has had a history of not keeping her distance from people facing serious allegations. So here we are, it's wild, it's disappointing. And honestly, it's disappointing even though, to be fair, my expectations for this situation were already pretty low. If you want to dive deeper, I've got another video over here, right next to me, that you can check out. And I really want to hear what you think, so drop your thoughts down in the comments. I'm sure there's plenty to discuss.